Hey everyone, welcome back to the dumpster fire that is my life. Today I've got a pretty exciting video. It's about the voices that I have in my head. We're going to be going through the personality of each one, what they say, and yeah, let's get into it. Okay, before we hit the list, the voices go from most common to least common. One thing to note is that because of my medication, I generally only hear the first three on this list. The others are extremely uncommon now since I am pretty under control for hallucinations. However, the first three are still a daily thing. I've just kind of learned to deal with it. Not a big deal. First on the list, we have the trio. It's two men and a woman. Pretty common. I hear them every single day, at least once or twice an hour. The first thing about the trio of voices I hear is that they come from basically like the physical space inside my head. So when I hear them, they kind of sound like they're in me. It's a hard thing to describe, whereas if you were to knock on something, like you would know that like that comes from that direction. However, this comes from directly inside my head. When I'm not medicated, they're pretty much my companions, my non-stop talking buddies. They never shut up. I wouldn't say they're either good or bad. They're kind of neutral, and what I mean by that is they don't really give their opinion on things much. They just kind of talk about what I'm doing. So they'll comment on like where I'm going, what I'm currently, like the activity that I'm currently engaged in. For example, I'm in the shower, let's say, and I drop the soap. Pretty much all they're going to talk about, one of the three, would be drop the soap, it's going to bend down, but watch out, the floor's slippery. It sounds strange, but to me, it's normal. One of the things I'd say about me, honestly, I am not very aware of my surroundings. So a cool thing about the voices that I hear, they're actually kind of alert more than I am and comment on a lot of things I don't seem to pick up, which is actually pretty crazy. And I think one of the most interesting things about these three voices is that my brain is somehow picking up on all these things that my conscious brain actually isn't. I would never actually say that these voices are bad or good, really. They're, like I said, neutral. Not anything, really. They're kind of just there, and they don't really bother me much. The only thing I would say that bothers me is sometimes they will point out something that I didn't pick up on, or maybe I did pick up on, and I'm already a little nervous about, and then they will comment or talk about it. And that kind of thing does make me more on edge because it's bringing hyper awareness to something I was already anxious about, and that's the only bad thing I'd say about them. However, the cool thing, or not cool thing, it's a strange thing. It's kind of like my own personal family, is that when I went on medication, they went down a lot. I only hear them once or twice an hour. However, unmedicated, it never stopped, and that was weird for me to get into the mindset of hearing that. But now, when I went on to medication, it was like I was almost lonely because I lost these people that were a big part of me that never really seemed to shut up, and kind of, it's like you're never alone, essentially. But now I am. So it was a little bit of adjustment period after that. Next up on the list is the, frankly, I guess, bitchy woman that I hear quite often. I wouldn't say often. I maybe hear them 3 or 4 times a week now. I would generally say that this is the shittiest of my voices that I hear. The entire personality of this woman is to essentially belittle me for everything I do. Any activities I'll do, I'm always, if I'm hearing this hallucination, well, she'll basically tell me that I'm not good enough at it, that I look stupid, that everyone's laughing at me. And that kind of really puts me on edge. A lot of the time, if I'm in a really sour mood, I'm snappy, or I'm kind of mopey, that's part of the reason why is because I have this voice telling me about how much of a garbage person I am, essentially, how much of a disappointment I am, how much of a failure I am to my family, my girlfriend, my friends. The other horrible thing that this voice tends to do is when I'm talking to someone, kind of, if I'm having this voice, interjecting comments about how the thing I said will be, well, this person doesn't believe you, or this person thinks this, in much worser terms than that. It's a pretty grating thing that wears you down pretty quickly. After that, number 4, we have what I guess I would just call the shrieking woman. There's really we're getting into no personality territory. Actually, this is basically, imagine any horror movie with a woman shrieking that is not quite human. There's not really much else to say about this voice. It's just a horrible shrieking sound that sort of puts me on edge. Sometimes it's like weeping. It's a horrible sound, and generally once I hear this, my mother and my girlfriend at this point, they both kind of know. They know, but they don't know that I'm hearing it, because I usually tense up. I get pretty on edge for a couple of minutes as I try and figure out, like, was it real? Was it not real? One of the reasons why is because this is the first voice that I can hear that sounds like it comes from the physical world around me, like an actual sound would, as opposed from in my head. So a lot of the times when I hear this, it sounds like it's off in the distance. And you might think that maybe I'm hearing a real person, and sometimes I am, but this is a very specific sound that I can hear out in the middle of nowhere. In the middle of a cornfield, I will hear this voice screaming. And sometimes if I'm on my computer or something, I end up ripping off my headphones and walking around trying to figure out whether or not this thing is real, looking out of my windows, which definitely makes me look like the insane person that I am, which is cool. But that's really all there is to say about this voice. Next up, we actually have the nicest voice that I hear. This is actually, like, I would say a preteen girl. It's a completely innocent voice that doesn't really do much of anything. I almost never hear this voice. And the things that this voice kind of says is something sort of like, hey there, or hello, things like that. It's a very weird way. It's hard to even describe, because it's like, the best way is maybe a small child who is your relative or something that sneaks up behind you and hey there, and that kind of thing. And that's actually how it always sounds. The only thing about it that is negative is it sounds like it's from behind me, directly behind me every time. So that's pretty much it for that one. Like I said, it's pretty rare. Last on the list of voices that I hear, also most definitely the rarest voice I hear, is an absolute asshole of a man. I have only heard this voice a handful of times my entire life. 10 years I've maybe heard it 20, 30 times. The worst thing about this voice is that it generally tells me to be violent and to do terrible things to people. I used to hear this voice a lot more often when I was off medication. Now that I'm on medication, I maybe hear it once or twice a year. The kinds of things it tells me to do would be very graphic things, like smashing someone's head in with something nearby, or stabbing someone to death, or beating someone with my bare hands. It's kind of more of a personally, I don't know, but it feels like a manifestation of my paranoia, but it's a much more commanding voice than any of the other voices. It's not enjoyable. A lot of the time is I'm having a complete psychotic episode when I have this voice. The first time I ever had it, which was when I was 23, I think, I was in an argument with my girlfriend, and the voice told me to beat her to death, and it really freaked me out. It was one of the couple days before I realized, like, I needed to get help, because I had never heard that voice, and it was extremely, honestly, it was scary. That's another voice, like I said, that I almost never hear. I have heard it once this year so far, and this is May, so that's how rare it is. This is also a voice that comes from deep within my head instead of around me. This is also, as the last voice, one that comes from within my head. It's a bit weird though, because it's almost like a visceral feeling. With the other was you hear it. This one kind of it's so angry that it like reverberates, and I feel it deep within inside me, and I really hate it. It freaks me out every time. I honestly hope I never have it again. I'm sure I will. Yeah, it's just a shitty experience. That, like I said though, I have never told a single person about this until now, so that's kind of exciting to finally just get it out there. And that's pretty much the whole list. I've got the full 6 voices that I hear. Only the first 3 I tend to ever hear on a daily basis. It used to be I would hear a lot of these voices quite frequently. The first 3 would pretty much never shut up 24/7. But medication is quite awesome and really helps me function, because even with just those 3, when you try to talk to someone, it's kind of like having a TV on in the background. So imagine trying to have like a really personal conversation where you're trying to talk to someone and really connect with them while Friends or some shit is playing like right in your head. You just can't get away from it, and it's super distracting. And that's not even saying maybe the real TV's on too while you're trying to talk to someone. So because of this, I've kind of tried to change my life in general. I like to keep things very quiet. Hey everybody, it's me editing now. For some reason the last 30 to 45 seconds got corrupted, so I was just going to finish by saying I keep things quiet. And that way I can tell when I do hear a hallucination what isn't real. And it's easy to kind of discern it that way. That was pretty much it. There was only like 1 or 2 sentences after that. So anyways, that's the end of the video. If you liked it, like it, whatever, I don't care. See ya.